My boyfriend's sister demanded that I buy her a $40,000 car because rich people have obligations to help. She tried to humiliate me on social media, but it brutally backfired. My boyfriend Jake and I had been together for 2 years, and everything was perfect, until his younger sister Ashley graduated from college and moved back to their hometown. Jake and I both worked in tech, him as a developer and me as a product manager. We lived comfortably but nothing crazy, splitting a nice apartment downtown and saving for a house. Ashley had visited a few times during college and seemed sweet, always thanking us for dinner and asking about our work. But something changed when she moved back home and saw our apartment without the college student filter. She started making comments about how we must be loaded, pointing out my designer bag that was actually a thrift store find, or Jake's watch that was a graduation gift from 5 years ago. She'd joke about us being her rich relatives who'd take care of her. Jake laughed it off, saying Ashley was just adjusting to post-college life. The comments got worse when Ashley found out I'd inherited some money from my grandfather. It wasn't millions, just enough to invest and have a safety net, but Ashley acted like I'd won the lottery. She started asking for things constantly. Could I cover her phone bill just this month? Could I loan her money for interview clothes? Could I pay for her gym membership since staying healthy was important? Each time Jake would tell me his sister was struggling and it would be nice to help. So I did, thinking it was temporary while she job searched. After 3 months of this, Ashley called me directly saying she needed to talk about something important. She came to our apartment with a whole presentation on her laptop about why I should buy her a car. She had spreadsheets showing my estimated salary, Jake's salary, our probable savings, and my inheritance amount that she'd somehow calculated from public records and LinkedIn stalking. She'd picked out a specific car, a $40,000 SUV, and had already been to test drive it. She said rich people had obligations to help those still building their lives. She actually used the words moral obligation. When I said I wasn't rich, she pulled up our apartment building's website showing rent prices and said only rich people could afford to live there. She didn't know Jake's company subsidized our housing as part of his package. She pointed to my work laptop and said my company was known for high salaries. She didn't know I'd taken a pay cut to join for the equity potential. She said my inheritance made me set for life, so helping her get started was the decent thing to do. She said she'd already told her friends I was buying her the car and didn't want to look like a liar. Jake came home during this presentation, and Ashley immediately started telling him how generous I was being. When Jake asked what she meant, she said I'd agreed to buy her the SUV. I said I'd done no such thing. Ashley said I was probably just being humble, but we all knew I could afford it. She said Jake should convince me, since when we got married it would be his money too, and he should want his sister to have reliable transportation. Jake looked at the presentation on her laptop and asked Ashley if she'd lost her mind. Ashley said successful people helped their families, and since I was practically family, this was normal. She said her friend Tiffany's brother's girlfriend bought Tiffany a purse, so a car wasn't even that big of an ask. Jake told Ashley to leave. She started crying and said we were selfish, that we had more than we needed while she had nothing. She said she'd remember this when we needed something from her someday. After she left, Jake apologized and said he had no idea she'd become this entitled. We agreed to stop giving her money immediately. Ashley didn't take that well. She started telling their family that I was hoarding wealth while she suffered. Their mom called Jake, concerned about why his rich girlfriend wouldn't help his struggling sister. Jake explained that Ashley wanted a luxury SUV, not help. Their mom was shocked and said Ashley had made it sound like she needed assistance with basic necessities. That's when the truth started coming out. Jake's phone rang an hour later, and his mom asked if we could both get on the line because his dad wanted to hear everything too. We sat on the couch with the phone on speaker between us while I walked through every single request Ashley had made over the past 3 months. The phone bill she needed covered turned out to be for a plan with unlimited data and international calling. The interview clothes were actually a shopping trip where she bought 3 outfits from Nordstrom. The gym membership was for a boutique fitness studio that cost twice what a normal gym would. Jake added details about the presentation, describing how Ashley had actual spreadsheets analyzing our salaries and calculating my inheritance amount from public property records and my grandfather's obituary. His mom kept making these small, shocked sounds while his dad asked clarifying questions in this carefully controlled voice. When we got to the part about the $40,000 SUV, his dad asked us to repeat the exact amount because he thought he'd heard wrong. We walked them through Ashley's whole moral obligation speech and how she'd already told her friends I was buying her the car. The call lasted 90 minutes, and by the end, both his parents sounded horrified at what their daughter had become. Jake's dad went quiet for a long moment before admitting they'd been sending Ashley $1,500 every month since she graduated in May. He said Ashley told them she couldn't find any work despite applying everywhere, and they'd felt terrible watching her struggle. But now he was looking at their bank statements and realizing they'd sent her over $9,000 in 6 months, and he had no idea what she'd actually been spending it on, if she was also hitting up other family members for money. His mom added that Ashley called them every week with updates about her job search, talking about all the applications she was submitting and how frustrating the process was. She said Ashley would get emotional about how hard post-college life was, and they'd felt guilty for not being able to do more to help. But now they were wondering if any of those job applications even existed, or if Ashley had been lying about that too while spending their money on whatever she wanted. The next morning I was getting ready for work when Jake showed me Ashley's Instagram story. She'd posted a quote about fake people who pretend to care about family, with a caption about learning who your real friends are when you actually need help. An hour later, she posted another one about how some people forget where they came from once they get a little success. I didn't respond or react to any of it, just screenshotted everything like Natasha from work had told me to do. Jake's phone started buzzing with texts from his cousin asking what was going on, because Ashley's posts were getting weirdly specific. Other family members were clearly seeing the posts too, based on the likes and comments, and I felt my stomach drop, knowing Ashley was trying to control the narrative before the truth got out. By that afternoon, Ashley had graduated from vague stories to a full Facebook rant. She wrote this long post about how some people hoard wealth while family members struggle, never naming me directly, but making it super obvious with details about tech jobs and inheritances and people who forget that family should come first. She talked about how disappointing it was to realize that blood doesn't mean anything to some people when money is involved. 3 of Jake's relatives commented with supportive messages telling Ashley to stay strong and that real family would never abandon her. Another aunt shared the post with a comment about how sad it was that young people today valued money over relationships. I was reading through the comments feeling sick when Jake's mom jumped into the thread telling everyone there was way more to the story and people needed to stop commenting until they knew the actual facts. I screenshot everything Ashley posted because Natasha told me at work that I needed to document this whole social media campaign in case things got worse. Natasha went through something similar with her sister-in-law a few years ago, where the woman tried to make her look bad on Facebook after Natasha wouldn't loan her money. She said people like Ashley usually dig themselves deeper when they don't get the reaction they want, and having proof of everything becomes really important later. I created a folder on my phone just for Ashley's posts, and made sure to capture the timestamps and all the comments from family members who didn't know what was really happening. Jake called Ashley directly that evening, and I could hear her voice through the phone even though he didn't have her on speaker. He told her she needed to take down the posts immediately, or he would share her car presentation with the entire family to show everyone what she'd actually demanded from us. Ashley started crying and saying she was just hurt that I didn't want to help her start her adult life. She said she'd worked so hard in college and did everything right, and now she was struggling while we had plenty of money to spare. Jake interrupted her and said she wasn't struggling. She was demanding a $40,000 luxury SUV after we'd already given her money for months. Ashley kept crying and said he was being cruel, that she just wanted some support from family during a hard time. She completely rewrote what happened to make herself the victim of my selfishness, instead of the person who'd shown up with spreadsheets analyzing our finances. That evening, Jake's Aunt Josephine called me directly, which surprised me because we'd only met a few times at family events. She said she'd seen all the Facebook drama and wanted to hear my side of things before she made any judgments about the situation. I walked her through everything starting from when Ashley first moved back home and began making comments about us being rich. I explained the 3 months of smaller requests we'd fulfilled, the phone bill and gym membership and shopping trips we'd paid for while she supposedly job hunted. Then I described the car presentation in detail, including how Ashley had calculated my inheritance amount and picked out the specific SUV she wanted. Josephine listened without interrupting, and I could actually hear her opinion shifting in real time as she realized Ashley had been manipulating everyone's view of what happened. Josephine went quiet for a second before admitting that Ashley had called her 2 weeks ago asking to borrow $5,000 for emergency dental work. She said Ashley described this whole situation about needing a root canal and crown and how she was in pain but couldn't afford the procedure. Josephine told her no because she and Milton were saving every penny for their daughter's wedding next spring, and the budget was already stretched thin. Ashley had gotten snippy with her and made a comment about people who choose parties over family health, which had seemed weird at the time but made total sense now. Josephine said she was wondering if Ashley even needed dental work, or if that was just another made-up emergency to get money from relatives. The next day, Jake's mom made her own Facebook post saying that family business should stay private, and everyone needed to stop commenting on situations they didn't fully understand. She didn't call out Ashley by name, but it was clearly directed at her, asking people to respect that there were 2 sides to every story. The post was pretty diplomatic, but you could tell she was frustrated with how Ashley had tried to publicly shame us. Several relatives messaged Jake privately after that, asking what actually happened with the car situation, and he had to decide how much detail to share with extended family, who didn't need to know everything, but deserved some truth. Ashley texted me directly for the first time since the car presentation, and my hands actually shook a little when I saw her name pop up on my screen. She said she was sorry for the social media posts, and that she'd just been emotional because she felt rejected by someone she thought cared about her. She said she never meant to cause problems between Jake and me, and she hoped we could move past all this drama and still be family in the future. I read the message 3 times looking for any actual acknowledgement of how inappropriate her demands had been, but there was nothing. No mention of the $40,000 SUV or the presentation analyzing our finances, or the fact that she'd lied to Jake about me agreeing to buy her the car. Just this vague apology about being emotional and a hope that we could move forward, like she'd simply overreacted to something minor instead of demanding a luxury vehicle, and then trying to publicly humiliate me when I said no. I showed Jake the text on my phone, and we sat on the couch looking at Ashley's message together. He read it twice before shaking his head and saying she was trying to smooth things over without actually taking responsibility for anything she'd done. The apology was all vague language about being emotional and causing drama, but nothing about demanding a $40,000 car or lying to him about me agreeing to buy it. Jake texted back that they could rebuild their relationship after she acknowledged what she actually did wrong and stopped playing victim on social media. He sent it and put his phone face down on the coffee table, looking tired in a way that made me realize how much stress his sister had been putting on him. We ordered takeout and watched a movie, but I could tell he kept thinking about Ashley because he'd zone out during scenes and I'd have to ask if he was okay. 2 days later, we were both working from home when Jake's phone rang and I heard him say Milton's name. Jake put the call on speaker after Milton said he had information about Ashley that we needed to hear. Milton explained that after Josephine told him about the car situation, he'd done some digging because something felt off about Ashley's whole story. Apparently, Ashley's college roommate was the daughter of Milton's coworker, and when Milton casually asked about Ashley during a conversation at work, the roommate had plenty to say. She told Milton that Ashley spent their entire senior year buying expensive clothes and going out to clubs multiple times a week, while constantly posting on social media about being broke and struggling. The roommate said it got so bad that their friend group started making jokes about Ashley's fake poverty because she'd complain about having no money while wearing a new designer jacket. Milton said the roommate seemed relieved to finally tell someone because she'd always thought Ashley's act was weird, but didn't know who to mention it to. Jake asked Milton to repeat the part about Ashley doing this in college, and Milton confirmed that according to the roommate, this pattern of exaggerating financial need while spending on luxuries started way back then, not after graduation like we'd assumed. The roommate told Milton that Ashley would post on Instagram stories about struggling to afford groceries, then post photos the same day showing off new purchases or expensive restaurant meals. Their college friends eventually stopped believing anything Ashley said about money because the evidence of her actual spending was right there on social media for everyone to see. She apparently asked different friends for loans throughout senior year, always with some urgent reason why she needed cash, but she never paid anyone back and people learned to just say no. Milton said he thought we should know this wasn't new behavior from Ashley. It was the established pattern that she'd been running for years. After Milton hung up, Jake and I just looked at each other for a minute before I grabbed my laptop and pulled up Ashley's Instagram. We started scrolling through her posts from the past 3 months, the same period when she'd been asking us for money and claiming she couldn't afford basic necessities. It didn't take long to find exactly what Milton's coworker's daughter had described. There was a post from 6 weeks ago showing Ashley at some fancy brunch place with mimosas and a full spread of food, tagged with the location and everything. 3 weeks ago, she'd posted a photo of herself in a new outfit with the tag still visible on the sleeve, captioned about treating herself. 2 weeks ago, there were concert tickets and photos from the show with her friends. Last week, she'd posted about a spa day with face masks and cucumber water. Every single post showed her spending money on entertainment and luxuries while she was texting us asking for help with her phone bill. I felt this weird mix of being right and being angry at the same time. Part of me was relieved that we had proof Ashley had been lying, but a bigger part was furious that we'd given her money for 3 months while she was spending her own cash on fun stuff. Jake looked hurt in a way I hadn't seen before. Like finding out his sister had been manipulating him was worse than just being asked for money. He kept scrolling through her Instagram and finding more examples, his jaw getting tighter each time he saw another expensive restaurant or new purchase. He finally closed the laptop and said he was embarrassed that he'd kept pushing me to help Ashley when she was clearly lying about her financial situation the whole time. I told him it wasn't his fault because Ashley had been good at playing the victim, but I could tell he felt guilty about not seeing through it sooner. Natasha called me that afternoon to check in after I'd texted her about what Milton discovered, and she immediately suggested we document everything on Ashley's social media before she realized people were catching on and started deleting posts. She said her daughter Aurelia was a teenager and way better at social media than us, and Aurelia could help create an organized record of all Ashley's spending posts. I agreed, and Natasha brought Aurelia over that evening with her laptop. Aurelia pulled up Ashley's Instagram and started taking screenshots of every post that showed spending, organizing them by date in a folder on her computer. She also noted the estimated cost of each activity or purchase based on what she knew those things typically cost. Watching a 16-year-old efficiently document my boyfriend's sister's lies felt surreal, but Aurelia treated it like a school project and had the whole thing organized within 2 hours. The documentation was honestly eye-opening, because when Aurelia added up just the visible purchases and activities from Ashley's posts over the past 3 months, the total came to over $4,000. That wasn't counting anything Ashley might have bought or done without posting about it. Just the stuff she'd actively bragged about on social media. $4,000 on restaurants, concerts, new clothes, spa treatments, and other entertainment while telling us and her parents that she couldn't afford interview clothes or a phone bill. Jake stared at the spreadsheet Aurelia had created and said this wasn't someone struggling to make ends meet. This was someone who wanted other people to fund her lifestyle, so she could spend her own money on whatever she wanted. Natasha told us to save multiple copies of the documentation, because people like Ashley often tried to rewrite history once they got caught. Jake's parents called the next morning after Milton shared what he'd learned from the roommate, and this time they wanted specifics about the money they'd been sending Ashley. Jake's dad was on the phone and he sounded completely exhausted when he admitted they'd been giving Ashley $1,500 a month since May. They'd believed her story about having no income while job hunting and needing help with basic living expenses. Jake's mom got on the line and said she was angry with herself for not questioning Ashley's story more carefully, especially since Ashley claimed she was applying to jobs everywhere, but never seemed to have any interviews. She explained that whenever they asked Ashley for details about her job search, Ashley would get defensive and start crying, saying they didn't believe in her and were adding to her stress. So they'd stopped asking questions and just kept sending the money every month, trusting that their daughter was telling them the truth about her situation. We spent an hour on the phone with Jake's parents going through everything we'd discovered. Jake showed them the Instagram documentation over video call, and I watched his mom's face change as she saw post after post of Ashley spending money on luxuries. His dad kept asking how they'd missed this, how they'd sent their daughter $900 over 6 months without realizing she was lying about needing it. Jake's mom said Ashley would call them crying about not being able to afford food, and they'd send money immediately because what parent wants their kid to go hungry? But now they could see Ashley had been eating at expensive restaurants the whole time, just using their money to cover her rent and bills so she could spend her own income on fun. We all agreed right there on the call to stop giving Ashley money immediately and to require actual proof of job applications if she ever asked for financial help in the future. Jake's dad said they were going to drive to Ashley's apartment and have a serious conversation with her about the lying and manipulation. He thanked us for being honest about what really happened instead of just cutting them off, and he apologized for initially believing Ashley's version of events without hearing our side first. I watched the family group chat conversation wind down that evening, everyone agreeing to stop giving Ashley money until she showed real change. Jake's parents thanked us again for being honest, and several relatives sent private messages expressing shock at what Ashley had been doing. The next morning, I woke up to a notification that Ashley had posted something new on Facebook. I opened the app and saw her latest message saying she was done trying to maintain relationships with people who value money over family bonds. The post had been up for 20 minutes and already had 4 sad face reactions from relatives, but I noticed something different this time. Nobody had commented with support or sympathy like they did on her previous posts. The reactions were there, but the encouraging words were missing, and I wondered if people were starting to see through her victim act. I took a screenshot and sent it to Jake, who was already awake and reading the same post. He texted back saying his mom had probably warned some relatives about Ashley's lies, so they weren't rushing to comfort her anymore. I checked the post again an hour later and saw that Josephine had commented, which made my stomach drop because I wasn't sure which side Jake's aunt would take publicly. But when I read her comment, I actually smiled. Josephine wrote that family bonds require honesty and respect, not demands and manipulation, and that real love means telling the truth even when it's hard. Ashley's victim narrative had just gotten a public rebuttal from her own aunt, and I knew that would sting more than anything Jake or I could say. I refreshed the page every few minutes watching to see if Ashley would respond, or if other relatives would pile on, but instead the entire post disappeared within an hour. Ashley had deleted it, probably realizing that her sympathy campaign was backfiring now that family members were calling out her behavior publicly. Jake told me that 3 people had already sent him screenshots of the post, and Josephine's comment before Ashley took it down, so the evidence of her manipulation was spreading through the family even after she tried to erase it. That afternoon, I got a message from someone named Hannah, who I vaguely remembered meeting at a family barbecue last summer. She introduced herself as Jake's cousin, and asked if I was okay because her mom had told her that Ashley had been pressuring us for money. I appreciated her checking in and told her the basics about the car demand and the presentation. Hannah responded immediately saying that Ashley had tried to borrow $3,000 from her last month, claiming she needed it for car repairs. Hannah said she didn't have that kind of money to give and felt terrible about saying no, but now she was wondering if Ashley even had a car that needed repairs. I told Hannah that Ashley didn't own a car at all, which was part of why she wanted us to buy her the $40,000 SUV. Hannah sent back a string of angry emojis and said she'd felt guilty for weeks about not being able to help with the repairs, and now she was furious that Ashley had invented the whole story. She asked if Ashley had tried this with other family members too, and I said we were just finding out how many people she'd asked. Hannah said her mom had mentioned something about dental work and medical bills, and she was starting to realize Ashley had been running different cons on different relatives. Jake came home from a coffee shop where he'd been working, and I showed him the conversation with Hannah. He sat down at our kitchen table and opened his laptop, saying it was time to make sure everyone in the family knew the truth, so Ashley couldn't keep manipulating people with different stories. He created a group chat and added his parents, his aunts and uncles, his cousins, and a few close family friends, but he specifically left Ashley out. I watched him type a message explaining that he needed to share something important about his sister's recent behavior. He kept it factual and straightforward, not trying to trash Ashley, but making sure the truth was clear. He wrote about the $40,000 SUV demand, the presentation analyzing our finances, Ashley's claim that rich people had moral obligations to help her, and her lies to their parents about us refusing to help with basic necessities. He included specific details like the spreadsheets she'd created and the fact that she'd already test-driven the car before demanding we buy it. He ended by saying he loved his sister but couldn't watch her manipulate the family anymore, and he wanted everyone to know what was really happening so they could make informed decisions about their own interactions with Ashley. The group chat exploded within minutes. Messages started flooding in faster than I could read them, relatives responding with shock and anger and confusion. Some people said they had no idea Ashley had been asking for money at all. Others admitted they'd given her small amounts here and there, thinking she was genuinely struggling. Milton posted that Ashley had asked him for $5,000 for emergency dental work, confirming what Josephine had told me earlier. Hannah jumped into the chat saying Ashley had requested $3,000 for car repairs on a car she didn't even own. Another cousin, whose name I didn't immediately recognize, said Ashley had contacted her about needing money for overdue medical bills that were supposedly going to collections. Jake's aunt on his dad's side said Ashley had asked to borrow $1,200 for interview clothes and job application fees. The messages kept coming, each relative sharing a different sob story Ashley had told them, and I felt sick watching the scope of her lies unfold in real time. Jake's mom posted that she was reading every message and felt horrible that Ashley had targeted so many people. His dad wrote that they'd had no idea Ashley was doing this to the whole family, not just to us. I grabbed a notebook and started writing down each story as relatives shared them in the chat. Ashley had asked Milton for $5,000 for dental work. She'd asked Hannah for $3,000 for car repairs. She'd asked the cousin for money for medical bills, though the exact amount wasn't specified. She'd asked another aunt for $1,200 for interview clothes. She'd asked Josephine for $5,000 using the same dental work story she'd told Milton. Jake's dad revealed they'd been sending her $1,500 monthly since May. When I added up all the amounts that people actually specified in the chat, it came to over $20,000 that Ashley had requested from various family members over the past few months. Most people had said no or given much smaller amounts than she'd asked for, but the fact that she'd asked at all was disturbing. She'd been running a whole operation, creating tailored sob stories for different relatives, and counting on everyone being too polite or private to compare notes with each other. She'd gambled that family members wouldn't talk about money with each other, and she'd almost gotten away with it. Jake sat back from his laptop looking exhausted. His phone kept buzzing with private messages from relatives who wanted to share more details outside the group chat, or who were too embarrassed to admit publicly that they'd given Ashley money. His mom posted in the group chat that she and Jake's dad were going to have a serious intervention with Ashley that weekend. She apologized for initially believing Ashley's version of events about us being selfish, and thanked us for being patient while the truth came out. She said she was mortified that her daughter had been lying and manipulating the whole family, and she took responsibility for enabling Ashley's behavior by not asking harder questions when Ashley claimed to be struggling. Jake's dad added that they should have verified Ashley's claims instead of just sending money every time she called crying. Several relatives posted supportive messages saying they didn't blame Jake's parents, and that Ashley was an adult who'd made her own choices to lie. The chat finally started to slow down after about 2 hours, everyone processing what they'd learned and agreeing to stop giving Ashley money without proof of actual need. That weekend, Jake got a call from his mom saying they were at Ashley's apartment and asking if he could come over because the intervention wasn't going well. Jake asked if I wanted to come too, and I said yes because I'd been involved from the beginning and wanted to see this through. We drove to Ashley's place, which was about 30 minutes away in a cheaper part of town. When we walked up to her apartment door, his mom let us in looking stressed and upset. Ashley's living room was scattered with shopping bags from expensive stores, the kind of places I only went during major sales. There were bags from department stores and boutiques, some still full of items with tags attached. Jake's dad was standing in the kitchen holding a receipt and his face was red like he'd been yelling. Ashley was sitting on her couch with her arms crossed, looking defensive and angry. Her mom gestured at the shopping bags and said they'd arrived to find Ashley just getting home from a shopping trip. When they'd asked where the money came from, Ashley had claimed the items were gifts from friends or things she'd found at thrift stores. But Jake's dad had checked the bags and found receipts showing Ashley had spent over $800 that day, alone at full-price retail stores. Ashley saw us walk in and immediately started crying, saying everyone was ganging up on her and it wasn't fair. Her mom said they weren't ganging up. They were trying to understand why Ashley had been lying about needing money while spending hundreds of dollars on clothes and accessories. Jake's dad asked Ashley directly to show them her bank statements. Ashley refused at first, saying her finances were private and she didn't have to prove anything to anyone. Her dad said that if she wanted any chance of rebuilding trust with the family, she needed to be completely honest starting right now. Ashley and her dad argued for almost 20 minutes, her claiming this was an invasion of privacy, and him saying she'd lost the right to privacy when she'd lied to everyone. Finally, Ashley grabbed her phone and pulled up her banking app, shoving it at her dad with an angry gesture. He looked at the screen and his expression changed from angry to confused. He asked Ashley when she'd started working. Ashley mumbled something we couldn't hear. Her mom took the phone and looked at the bank statements, then asked Ashley again when she'd gotten a job. Ashley admitted she'd been working part-time at a boutique for the past month. Jake asked why she hadn't told anyone, and Ashley said it wasn't anyone's business. Her dad said it became everyone's business when she was still taking money from family while earning her own income. The bank statements showed deposits of about $1,200 monthly from the boutique, plus the $1,500 monthly from Jake's parents, plus smaller amounts from other relatives who'd given her money. Ashley had been spending almost $3,000 a month when you added up her income and the family money, and most of it was going to restaurants, shopping, and entertainment, based on the transaction history. Her mom tried to have a calm conversation about the difference between helping and enabling. She explained that the family wanted to support Ashley while she got on her feet, but that supporting her didn't mean funding a lifestyle Ashley couldn't afford on her own. Ashley kept interrupting, saying she deserved to enjoy her youth and have nice things like everyone else. She said family should support each other without keeping score or demanding receipts. She claimed that Jake and I lived in a nice apartment and had good jobs, so why shouldn't she get to have nice things too? Jake pointed out that we paid for our lifestyle with our own money from our own jobs, not by lying to family members. Ashley said we were lucky to have high-paying jobs, and she was still figuring things out, so she needed more help. Her dad said she wasn't figuring things out. She was working at a boutique and spending everything she earned plus everything the family gave her. He said the monthly money was stopping immediately, and Ashley needed to learn to budget within her actual income. Ashley started crying harder and said they were abandoning her when she needed them most. Her mom said they weren't abandoning her. They were teaching her to be a responsible adult. Ashley said she couldn't afford her lifestyle on just the boutique salary. Her dad said then she needed to change her lifestyle or get a better paying job because the family wasn't going to keep funding her shopping habit. The intervention went in circles for another hour with Ashley deflecting and making excuses, and her parents trying to explain basic financial responsibility. Eventually, Jake's parents left after telling Ashley one more time that the money was cut off permanently. Ashley called after them saying they'd regret this, but her mom just kept walking. That night, Jake's phone buzzed around 11 while we were getting ready for bed. He looked at the screen and sighed before showing me Ashley's name. I sat next to him on the bed as he answered on speaker. Ashley's voice came through choked with tears, begging him to talk to their parents because she couldn't afford her lifestyle on just the boutique salary. She kept saying she'd budget better if they just kept helping her, completely missing the point that the problem was her lifestyle itself, not her budgeting skills. Jake listened for a few minutes while Ashley cycled through promises and excuses, and more crying. Then he told her he loved her, but he wasn't going to enable her manipulation anymore. He said she needed to take responsibility for lying to everyone and trying to shame me on social media. Ashley's crying stopped abruptly, and her voice got defensive. She said she didn't lie, she just presented things from her perspective, which was such a wild reframing that Jake actually laughed out loud before he could stop himself. He told her that perspective didn't change facts, ended the call, and turned off his phone. We both sat there for a minute processing the conversation. I asked if he thought Ashley would actually change, and he said he hoped so, but wasn't holding his breath. Over the next week, Ashley tried different tactics with different family members, testing who might still give her money. Josephine called Jake on Tuesday to tell him that Ashley had phoned her crying about not being able to afford groceries. Josephine said she almost caved until she remembered the shopping bags at Ashley's apartment and told Ashley to return some of her recent purchases if she needed food money. Hannah texted Jake on Thursday saying Ashley had messaged her about needing gas money to get to job interviews, but Hannah knew Ashley was already working at the boutique, so she ignored the request. I got a text from Ashley on Saturday with a long apology and a request for help with rent just this one time, promising she'd never ask again. I screenshotted it and sent it to the family group chat without responding to Ashley directly. Everyone started comparing notes in the group chat, and we could see Ashley's pattern clearly. She was rotating through relatives with different sob stories, hoping someone would break. We all agreed to stay united in saying no to any requests until Ashley showed actual changed behavior. Some relatives felt guilty about it. Jake's mom posted that it was hard to watch Ashley struggle, and Josephine admitted she felt bad for not helping with groceries, even though she knew Ashley was lying. Milton responded that giving her money now just taught her that manipulation worked if she was persistent enough, and everyone needed to stay strong. 2 weeks later, Jake's parents got a call from Ashley's landlord. The landlord said Ashley was 2 months behind on rent despite the lease showing she had income from her job. He was threatening eviction and said Ashley had told him to call her parents because they'd pay it. Jake's dad called us right after he hung up with the landlord, sounding exhausted and angry. He said this was exactly how Ashley had been operating with all her bills, just assuming family would cover everything while she spent her own money however she wanted. Jake asked what they were going to do, and his dad said they were refusing to pay the back rent. His mom got on the line and said it was killing her to do this, but they had to let Ashley face real consequences. This was huge because they'd always bailed Ashley out before, paying her car insurance when she forgot, covering her credit card bills when she overspent, handling every financial crisis she created. Jake told them he was proud of them for holding the boundary, even though it was painful. The landlord called Jake's parents 3 more times over the next few days, getting more insistent each time. Ashley's dad told him repeatedly that Ashley was an adult who needed to handle her own obligations. The landlord finally said he was proceeding with eviction paperwork if Ashley didn't pay at least 1 month of back rent within a week. Jake's mom called us after that conversation, crying and asking if we were sure this was the right approach. I reminded her gently that Ashley had been earning money the whole time she claimed to be broke, and this situation was entirely of Ashley's own making. Jake added that if they paid now, Ashley would just do this again in a few months because she'd learned that tears and crisis got results. On day 6 of the landlord's deadline, Jake's parents got a call from Ashley saying she'd picked up extra shifts at the boutique and asked her manager about full-time positions. She'd paid the landlord 1 month of back rent and negotiated a payment plan for the other month. Jake's dad was so surprised he made Ashley text him a photo of the receipt from the landlord. When the receipt came through, his mom started crying again, but this time from relief that Ashley had actually solved a problem herself, instead of asking family to fix it. Jake and I were cautiously hopeful that maybe Ashley was learning something real. The next day at work, I mentioned the situation to Natasha during our coffee break. She listened to the whole update and then warned me that manipulative people often change their behavior just enough to avoid consequences before going back to old patterns. She said her sister-in-law had done something similar, seeming to turn over a new leaf for a few months before returning to the same entitled demands. Natasha suggested we maintain boundaries for at least 6 months before considering Ashley trustworthy again. I told Jake about Natasha's warning that evening, and he agreed we should stay cautious. He said he wanted to believe Ashley was changing, but one payment plan didn't erase months of lying and manipulation. 3 weeks later, Jake's mom called asking if we were still planning to come to Thanksgiving dinner. She said she'd understand if we wanted to skip it given everything with Ashley. Jake and I talked about it for a while that night. Part of me wanted to avoid the awkwardness, but I didn't want Ashley's behavior to control our relationship with his family. Jake felt the same way. He called his mom back and told her we'd be there, and I could hear the relief in her voice through the phone. The week before Thanksgiving, Ashley posted something on Facebook that made Jake's phone start buzzing with family notifications. I looked over his shoulder as he opened the app. Ashley had written a public post apologizing for her recent behavior and admitting she'd been making poor financial choices and unfairly pressuring family members. It wasn't a complete acknowledgement of everything she'd done, nothing about the car demand or the social media campaign against me, but it was more accountability than we'd expected from her. Several relatives commented with supportive messages saying they were proud of her for being honest. Jake's mom commented with a heart emoji. Josephine wrote that growth was hard but worth it. I didn't comment, but I did screenshot the post just in case Ashley deleted it later like she had with her other dramatic posts. Thanksgiving morning arrived with cold rain that matched my nerves about seeing Ashley again. Jake and I drove the 2 hours to his parents' house mostly in silence, both of us wondering how the day would go. His mom had texted that morning asking us to please give Ashley a chance to show she was trying, which made me feel guilty for being so tense about a family holiday. We pulled up to find Ashley's car already there, parked neatly instead of taking up 2 spots like she used to do. Inside, the house smelled like turkey and stuffing, and Jake's mom hugged us both extra long like she was relieved we'd actually come. Ashley was in the kitchen helping set the table, wearing jeans and a plain sweater instead of the designer clothes she used to show off. She looked up when we walked in and gave a small wave, not rushing over to hug me or making a big scene. Dinner was awkward in that careful way where everyone watches what they say. Ashley sat across from me and mostly focused on her food, answering questions from relatives about her life but keeping her responses short. When Jake's aunt asked how the job search was going, Ashley surprised everyone by saying she'd picked up more hours at the boutique and was learning about inventory management. She didn't complain about the pay or hint that she needed help, just talked about the work itself like it was actually important to her. Jake's dad asked if she was still looking for something in her field, and Ashley admitted she was taking a break from job hunting to build up some savings first, which was the most responsible thing I'd heard her say in months. His mom's whole face relaxed when Ashley talked about saving money instead of spending it. After we finished eating, Ashley asked if she could talk to me privately. My stomach dropped because the last private conversation we'd had was her car presentation, but Jake was right there in the living room and nodded at me to go ahead. We stepped out onto the back porch where it was cold enough that our breath made clouds. Ashley wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the wet grass for a minute before talking. She apologized specifically for the car presentation, for the spreadsheets analyzing my finances, for telling her friends I'd agreed to buy her something I never agreed to. She said she'd convinced herself that my inheritance meant I had some kind of duty to share it with her, like my financial security was somehow unfair if I didn't spread it around. She admitted that was entitled and wrong, that my grandfather left me that money for my future, not hers. Then she brought up the social media posts, the ones where she'd tried to make me look like a selfish rich person hoarding wealth. She said she was embarrassed about those now, that she'd been so focused on what she wanted that she didn't think about how her words would affect me or Jake or their family. I listened to all of it without interrupting, trying to figure out if this was real or just another performance to get back in everyone's good graces. When she finished, I told her honestly that I accepted her apology, but rebuilding trust would take time. I said I needed to see consistent changed behavior, not just words, before I'd feel comfortable around her again. Ashley nodded and said she understood, that she knew she'd messed up badly and couldn't expect everyone to just forget it. For the first time since I'd met her, she seemed genuinely humble instead of performing humility to get something she wanted. We went back inside and finished the day without any more drama, and when we left that evening, Jake's mom hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for giving Ashley another chance." December passed quietly with no emergency texts from Ashley asking for money or dramatic social media posts about her struggles. Jake's parents reported that she was working full-time at the boutique now and had asked their advice about opening a savings account, which felt like actual progress instead of just talk. I stayed cautious, though, remembering what Natasha had said about manipulative people changing just enough to avoid consequences before going back to their old ways. Right before Christmas, a card arrived in the mail addressed to both Jake and me in Ashley's handwriting. Inside was a note thanking us for being patient with her while she grew up, saying she was embarrassed about how she'd acted, but grateful we hadn't completely cut her off from the family. There was no request for money tucked in with the card, no hint that she expected expensive gifts, just an actual expression of gratitude that seemed real. Jake read it twice like he was looking for a hidden agenda, then admitted maybe his sister was actually learning something. Christmas at his parents' house felt different from Thanksgiving had. Ashley brought gifts for everyone that were clearly inexpensive but thoughtful, things she'd put effort into rather than money. She gave Jake and me a framed photo from a family party over the summer that she'd edited and printed herself, and it was actually a nice picture of us laughing together. The gesture was small, but it showed she was thinking about other people instead of just what she could get from them. After we opened presents, Jake's mom pulled me aside into the kitchen while everyone else was cleaning up wrapping paper. She thanked me for giving Ashley another chance, saying she knew it would have been easier to just avoid family events after everything that happened. She admitted she'd enabled Ashley's behavior for years by always bailing her out of problems, never letting her face real consequences for her choices. She said she was trying to learn better boundaries too, that watching Ashley actually handle her own responsibilities was hard, but necessary. I told her I understood, that it was difficult to watch someone you love struggle even when you know helping them would just make things worse. In January, Ashley sent a message to the family group chat, announcing she'd been promoted to assistant manager at the boutique with a salary increase. She said she was excited because it meant she could finally start building real savings instead of just scraping by. The family responded with congratulations that felt genuine instead of the careful politeness from Thanksgiving. Jake's dad asked about her new responsibilities, and Ashley actually engaged in a real conversation about managing schedules and training new employees. A few days later, Natasha's husband William sent Jake a message offering to meet with Ashley for free to help her set up a proper budget and savings plan. William was a financial advisor and had heard about Ashley's situation through Natasha. Jake forwarded the offer to Ashley expecting her to ignore it or make excuses, but she responded within an hour asking when William was available. She showed up to the appointment with her bank statements and pay stubs, ready to learn instead of making excuses about why she couldn't save money. William called Jake afterward to report that Ashley had been receptive to his advice and seemed genuinely committed to improving how she handled money. He'd helped her set up automatic transfers to a savings account so she'd pay herself first, and showed her how to track her spending so she could see where her money actually went each month. Ashley had thanked him sincerely for taking time to help her without judging her past mistakes, and William said he believed she was serious about changing this time. By February, Ashley posted a screenshot of her banking app showing her savings account balance. $947 sat in that emergency fund, and the caption read about how she'd finally paid off all her back rent. She wrote about setting up automatic transfers every payday, about saying no to things she wanted but didn't need, about how good it felt to have money saved instead of spent. The post got comments from her friends asking for tips, and she actually responded with helpful advice instead of the usual complaints about how hard everything was. She shared a budgeting app she'd been using and talked about meal planning to save money on food. Jake showed me the post, and we both stared at it for a while, looking for the catch or the hidden request. There wasn't one. She was just proud of herself and wanted to share it, which felt like something a normal person would do instead of the entitled behavior we'd gotten used to seeing. Over the next few weeks, Ashley kept showing up to family things without drama. She brought inexpensive snacks to game night at her parents' house. She talked about her work schedule and her budget plans without getting defensive or ashamed. When her friends were invited her to an expensive brunch place, she suggested a cheaper alternative and actually said it was because she was sticking to her financial goals. Jake's mom told us about that last part, clearly amazed that Ashley had turned down something fun for something responsible. We started relaxing around her, not completely, but enough that family dinners didn't feel tense anymore. She never asked us for money, not once, not even in a joking way. When Jake mentioned a new video game he wanted, Ashley didn't hint that he should buy her one too. When I talked about a work conference in another city, she didn't suggest I bring her along. She just existed in conversations like a normal family member, instead of someone constantly calculating what she could get from everyone. March hit and my company called an all-hands meeting on a Tuesday morning. My manager looked stressed when he told everyone to log into the video call. The CEO appeared on screen with that careful expression executives get when they're about to deliver bad news. He talked about market conditions and restructuring and then said the words everyone dreads. Layoffs. 20% of the company. Decisions would be made over the next 2 weeks. My stomach dropped and I spent the rest of the day refreshing my email and trying to focus on work while my brain spun with worst-case scenarios. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. She'd seen my vague post about a stressful workday and wanted to check if I was okay. I told her about the layoff announcement and expected either silence or some kind of comment about how I'd be fine because I had savings. Instead, she sent back a message saying that sounded really scary and she was sorry I was dealing with that uncertainty. Then she sent 3 job listings she'd seen that week for product managers at other companies, saying she didn't know if they'd be helpful but figured it couldn't hurt to have options. She wasn't trying to fix everything or minimize my stress. She was just being supportive. It was the first time she'd offered help instead of asking for it, and I sat there staring at my phone feeling genuinely touched. 2 weeks later, I survived the cuts. My project got renewed funding and my manager told me I was safe. I felt guilty relief knowing that other people on my team weren't as lucky. That same week, Jake came home early looking shaken. His company was restructuring too. His entire department was eliminated. He had 60 days to find a new position internally or take a severance package. We sat on our couch and recalculated everything. We'd been planning to start seriously saving for a house down payment, but now we needed to focus on Jake finding work. He updated his resume that night while I made a spreadsheet of our expenses and how long we could last on one income if needed. Ashley texted Jake the next day asking how his job search was going. He told her what happened and she responded with encouragement and some developer job postings she'd found. Over the next few weeks, she checked in regularly without being pushy. She never once suggested we tap into my inheritance to cover expenses. She never made comments about how we'd be fine because we had money saved. She just asked how Jake was doing and if there was anything she could do to help. The difference between this Ashley and the one who demanded a $40,000 car was so stark, it almost didn't feel real. Jake landed 3 interviews in the first month. One went nowhere. One led to a second interview that didn't pan out. The third one moved fast. They wanted someone who could start immediately. The position paid $15,000 more than his old job. He got the offer on a Friday afternoon, and we both just stared at the email for a solid minute before it sank in. We called both our families that weekend to share the news. Ashley showed up to the celebration dinner at Jake's parents' house with an $8 bottle of wine and a card she'd made herself. The front had a drawing of Jake at a computer with the words, "Congratulations" in her handwriting. Inside, she'd written about being proud of him and knowing he'd land somewhere great. The gift was small and inexpensive, but she'd put actual thought and effort into it. She smiled when we talked about the new job and asked questions about his role in the company. There was no jealousy in her voice. No hint of wondering why good things happened for us. No suggestion that we owed her anything now that Jake was making more money. She just seemed genuinely happy that her brother's stress was over. Easter dinner at Jake's parents' house felt different from Thanksgiving or Christmas had. The whole family was there, including aunts and uncles and cousins. After we ate, Jake's dad stood up and said he wanted to make a toast. He talked about how proud he was of both his kids this year. Jake for handling his job transition with determination and finding something even better. Ashley for taking control of her finances and showing real maturity in how she'd changed her spending and saving habits. Ashley's eyes filled up and she wiped at them with her napkin. She stood up and her voice shook when she thanked her parents for not giving up on her even when she was acting terrible. She said she knew she'd put everyone through a lot with her demands and her lies and her social media drama. She said she was grateful that the family had held boundaries with her instead of just enabling her to keep making bad choices. She said she still had a long way to go, but she was trying. Jake's mom got up and hugged her, and then everyone else joined in for this big family moment that felt healing in a way that made my throat tight. May rolled around and almost a full year had passed since Ashley had sat in our apartment with her car presentation. She sent me a text asking if I wanted to get coffee because she had something she wanted to talk about. My stomach clenched with old worry that she was about to ask for something. I agreed to meet her at a cafe near her apartment the following Saturday. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees. She'd ordered mine the way I liked it. We sat down and she took a breath before saying she'd been in therapy for the past few months. She was working on understanding her entitlement issues and why she'd felt like she deserved other people's money. She said her therapist had helped her see patterns in her thinking that went back to college and even before. She'd built up this story in her head about how her life was supposed to go, and when reality didn't match it, she'd blamed everyone else instead of adjusting her expectations. Ashley kept talking and I just listened. She said she'd always done everything right in the school. Good grades, leadership positions, internships. She'd graduated believing that would translate into immediate success and comfort. When she moved back home and couldn't find a job in her field right away, she'd felt cheated. She'd looked at Jake and me with our tech jobs and nice apartment and my inheritance and decided we had something she deserved too. She'd convinced herself that people who had more had an obligation to share with people who had less, especially family. She said therapy was helping her understand that everyone struggles. Everyone has to work hard. Nobody gets to skip the difficult parts just because they think they've earned an easier path. She wasn't special or exempt from having to build her life slowly like everyone else. Her voice got quiet when she said she was really sorry for how she'd treated me. For the presentation, for the social media posts, for making me feel like I was selfish when I was just protecting my own financial security. She said she understood now why I'd said no and why the family had cut her off financially. I told her I appreciated her honesty and the work she was putting into changing. I said I could see the difference in how she showed up for family now. She wasn't performing for approval. She wasn't calculating what she could get. She was just present as herself, participating in family life without the underlying agenda. We talked for almost 2 hours about everything from her therapy insights, to her new goals for her career, to the fashion merchandising program she was considering. It felt like talking to an actual friend instead of a wary relative I had to keep my guard up around. When we stood up to leave, she hugged me, and it felt genuine instead of transactional. Walking back to my car, I realized I actually liked Ashley now. Not just tolerated her or felt obligated to include her. I genuinely enjoyed spending time with her. Jake's new job came with better benefits and a signing bonus we put straight into savings. We started seriously looking at houses in our price range. We spent weekends at open houses, taking notes and comparing neighborhoods. Our relationship felt stronger because we'd navigated the whole Ashley situation together. We'd held our boundaries even when his family pressured us. We'd supported each other through job stress. We'd learned we could handle family drama as a team without compromising what we needed. Jake said he was grateful that I'd stuck with him through all the chaos his sister had caused. I told him I'd never considered leaving because the problem was never him. We were building something together that could weather external pressure, and that felt more valuable than any inheritance or job or house. In June, Ashley called me sounding excited about something. She'd applied to a community college program for fashion merchandising and just got her acceptance letter. The program would help her move up from retail sales into buying or management, and she'd already mapped out how the classes fit around her work schedule. She was paying for it herself through a combination of her savings and a payment plan the school offered. Her voice had this pride in it that I hadn't heard before when she talked about her plans. She wasn't asking anyone to fund it or expecting family to cover the costs. She was investing in her future with money she'd earned and saved, and you could tell that meant something to her. Jake and I congratulated her, and she thanked us for believing she could turn things around even when she'd given everyone plenty of reasons not to. The same week, my manager Dinesh asked me to stop by his office after our team meeting. I walked in expecting another project assignment, but instead he closed the door and told me he'd been watching how I handled everything over the past year. He said most people would have let personal stress tank their work performance, but I'd kept delivering quality results even during the worst of the family drama. He was recommending me for a senior product manager position that just opened up. The role came with a significant raise, more responsibility, and better equity. I sat there trying to process what he was saying because I hadn't even known the position existed. Dinesh said the promotion wasn't guaranteed yet since other candidates were being considered, but he wanted me to know I had his full support. I thanked him and somehow made it back to my desk without floating off the ground. That night, Jake and I celebrated with takeout and cheap wine, calculating what the raise would mean for our house savings fund. By July, our families were planning the annual summer barbecue at Jake's parents' house. Ashley showed up with a guy she introduced as her boyfriend, Michael. She'd met him at work where he managed the store next to her boutique. He seemed normal and nice, asking Jake about his job and complimenting the potato salad Jake's mom made. Michael talked about his own plans to eventually open his own business, but in a realistic way that acknowledged it would take years of saving and planning. Ashley was relaxed around him in a way that felt sustainable. She wasn't performing or trying to impress anyone. She laughed at his jokes, and they had this easy comfort together that came from actually knowing each other rather than projecting fantasies onto each other. At one point, Michael mentioned they were saving up to take a weekend trip in the fall, and Ashley agreed it would be their first real vacation together. No mention of expecting anyone else to fund it. No hints about needing help. Just two people making plans within their actual budget. Jake and I closed on our first house in August. The whole process had been stressful with inspections and paperwork and last-minute negotiations, but we finally got the keys on a hot Saturday morning. Both our families showed up to help us move in. Ashley arrived with cleaning supplies, paper towels, and a cooler full of drinks and snacks. She worked hard all day carrying boxes, scrubbing bathrooms, and assembling furniture without a single complaint. Our house was definitely nicer than her apartment with its second bedroom and small yard, but she never made a comment about it. She didn't ask how much we paid or make jokes about us being fancy homeowners. She just helped us unpack kitchen boxes and laughed when we couldn't figure out which key opened the back door. By evening, we were all exhausted and sweaty, sitting on our new porch eating pizza straight from the box. Jake's mom was telling a story about their first house and all the things that went wrong the first month. Ashley chimed in with encouragement about how we'd figure it out. I looked around at everyone there, at Ashley passing napkins and refilling drinks, at Jake's arm around my shoulders, at both our families mixed together on our porch. We'd come through something difficult and come out the other side with stronger boundaries and more honest relationships than we'd had before. Ashley really had changed. Not performing change to get something, but actually doing the work to become someone different. Our family had survived the crisis and learned how to be better to each other in the process.